So hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Java Guru Ravi, and I Ravi Kansa welcome you in this new video. So let's get started. Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Java Guru Ravi, and today I have brought this topic, variables. So today we'll be talking about the variables and we'll learn almost everything about the variables. So let's start with the video. So variables, first thing is, what is a variable? So variable is some data member that we create in our program, but we want to get these values modified. Variable means which can change. So any data member you can create inside your class that is supposed to be modified. If you want that, okay, this value should not be modified, then you will declare it as a constant. So in the previous video also I had discussed how you declare the constant in Java using the final keyword. So if you declare any variable, if you qualify any variable with the final keyword, so it will become a constant. We are not talking about the constants here. We are going to talk about the variables. It means I want to declare something whose value should be modified in the future. So one thing I would like to mention here is Java is a strongly typed language. What this statement means? It means that whenever you create any data member in Java, so it must be having a specific type. The type must be mentioned while declaring a variable or maybe a constant. Right? You cannot declare a variable without any type. Let's say I want to create some variable to store salary. So I have to tell whether the salary is of int type, whether the salary is of float type, whether the salary is of double type. So it has to be specified during the declaration, right? So now we'll be talking about the variables. So in case of Java, we have three types of variables. The first one is local variable. So to be very honest, local variable is the most common one, and majority of you feel that local variable is something that you already know. But to be very honest, this is the concept which is not clear to majority of the students. And there are many questions which are asked based on the local variable. So we'll be discussing the local variables in detail in today's video, and we'll be talking about instance variable and class variable in the next video. So today we'll be talking about local variables. So what is the local variable? So local variable, as the name suggests, local variable is any variable which is declared locally. And when I say locally means, it simply says कि okay, you can define a variable inside any block of a class. So I am just going to mention here all the three different types of variables, but we'll focus on the local variable. So this is your class, and in this class, let's say I am writing a main method, right? So in the class, let's say I am declaring some variable, let's say int, let's say n. So int n. So if you are declaring any variable in the body of a class, then it is called as instance variable. Right? Any variable which is declared in the body of a class, this is called as instance variable. Instance variable is the property of an object. Instance variable will be the property of an object. Second is, inside the body of a class, again you can declare some other type of variable that is called as class variable. So how you declare a class variable? Let's say I am declaring another variable int x. But class variable can be distinguished from the instance variable by the keyword static. So any variable inside the body of a class which is qualified with the static keyword, it is called as class variable. So unlike the instance variable, it is not the property of an object. It is independent of the object. It is also called as shared variable. It means it will be having only one copy and it will be shared by all the objects which are created corresponding to this class. So we'll be talking about this static variable also in the separate video along with instance variables. So these are the two things which are declared inside the body of a class. But currently we are concerned about the local variables. So local variable cannot be declared in the body of a class. Local variable, as I said, it is declared inside some block of a class. And inside a class, what are the different blocks? What kind of blocks you can declare? So the common one that you are already aware is you can have some function which is called as method. So inside a method you declare some variable, that is a local variable. You can have some constructor, this is also a block. You can have some variables declared inside the constructor is local variable. So any block that you are having inside your class, and if you declare any variable inside a block, like you are writing for int I equal to 0, I less than 10. So this int I is a local variable of for loop. So you can declare any number of blocks, you can have any number of local variables inside the blocks. So here if you see, this main method is also having a local variable. So local variable can be declared starting from the parameter list and till the end of the curly braces, closing curly braces. So anywhere you declare any variable, like here in the main function you have this string array args. So args is a local variable, right? Let's say I have declared one variable here, int I is equal to 0. So this int I is a local variable. Then again I created a loop here. Yeah, I have written here for int p is equal to 5, p is less than 10, p plus plus. So here you can see p is again a local variable. So in this program, how many local variables are present? So first local variable is args, second local variable is I, and third local variable is p. So within this main function we totally have 3 local variables. Right? Now we'll learn about the local variable properties. So there are 4 to 5 aspects based on which we can compare and contrast different types of variables. So first one is the memory, where the memory gets allocated. So for local variables, a specific memory area is defined. I hope you are aware that in case of Java, memory allocation is the responsibility of JVM. Memory allocation is not done by the operating system, and that's why in case of Java, the memory allocated to any data member, any variable remains constant across every platform. It does not depend whether your system is 32-bit, whether your system is 64-bit. It is going to be common across every platform. So JVM is majority of the times creating 3 memory areas. One is called as stack. Second is called as heap. And third is called as class area. Right? So stack is used to store the local variables. All the local variables and all the function calls are stored in the stack. Now the question is why it is in the stack, right? So we'll come to that thing, but stack is allocated for the local variables. Now second aspect is default value. So again I bring this thing into your notice that in case of Java we don't have anything called as garbage value. Like in C and C++, if you do not assign some values, so you will get some default garbage value. But in case of Java, we have the concept of default value, right? It means there are certain default values which are assigned by the JVM. So what are those default values? If you take some numbers, so default value is 0. For all the numeric types, whether you talk about byte, int, short, long, the default value is 0. Similarly, if you take some floating point number like float or double, so default value is 0.0. Third thing is, if you take some boolean, so for boolean the default value is false. If you talk about any object reference, so for object reference the default value is null. If you create some class reference, so the default value will be assigned as null. And if you take a character, so for character also the default value is a null character, which is represented at /u0000. So this is the default value for characters. So if you create some variable and you do not initialize it, if you do not assign any value, so Java will assign it a default value, right? But this concept, this default value is not applicable to the local variables, right? So local variables do not get the default value, and that's why there is a concept of the local variable. It is said that local variable must be initialized before using it. Local variables must be initialized before using it. What it means? It means that if you are creating a local variable, I have created a local variable int I equal to 0. It's okay, it is perfectly fine. But even if I create here int I and I do not assign any value here, it is not a crime. I can use int I here as a local variable, but it is allowed just because I am not using it. I am not using it anywhere. So this will compile, but as soon as you try to use it, even if you try to print it here, system.out.println I, it will give me a compilation error. It will say variable I might not have been initialized. So this is the important concept. If you are declaring a local variable, you must initialize before using it. Second, and then the third concept is saying that along with local variable, no access modifier is allowed. You cannot use the keywords or access modifiers like public, private, protected with the local variable. It is not allowed. Why? Because local variable is created. Important point, it should be noted that local variable is created as soon as the line executes where it is declared. If you talk about in this line here, int I, the int p does not exist. The int p will not exist. Int p will be existing when this line gets executed, right? And local variable gets deallocated. It will be removed from the memory as soon as the block completes. It means the closing curly braces of that block where it is declared is executed. Means now I have already told you why it is declared in the stack. Just think about this. When you run this program, first of all args is created, because this is the first line which is declaring your first local variable. So first of all args will be declared and it will be created inside the stack. Then you come to this line, second line, int I is declared, so int I will be created here on the stack. Then next line you come here, int p, so p will be created in the stack. Now tell me which variable should be deallocated first. Which one will complete? First of all the loop will complete, or first of all the main function will complete? Which one will complete first? Obviously the loop will terminate first. It means loop will terminate first. As soon as this closing braces will be executed, it will say p was the local variable deallocated. I'll say I have stored the local variables in the stack. Check the stack, you get the p. P gets deallocated. Then I will complete the main function. So first of all, this I will be deleted, right? So you will get the stack I will be removed. Then the main function will complete and this args will be deallocated. That's why stack is used to declare the local variables and function calls. The reason being they are last in first out. The local variable which is created at the end will be the first to be removed. You talk about nested loops. outer loop, then nested loop. Which one will complete first? Inner loop. So inner loop variable must be deallocated first. Same with the function call. You call from function A to function B, then function B to function C. Which one will complete first? C. It means it should be stored in the last in, first out manner. Right? So these are some important concepts about the local variable. First thing, it is created inside the stack. Second thing, it is not getting any default value. Third thing, it is not allowing any kind of modifier. No modifier. Even access modifiers are not allowed. Fourth thing, it is created as soon as the line declaring this variable is executed, and it is deallocated as soon as the block completes. Right? If you will try to access it outside the block, it will give you compilation error. Cannot find symbol. If you will try to print here the value of P, this line will give you compilation error. Cannot find symbol P. Why? Because when this block completes, P is deallocated, and here the statement P, this is trying to print P, which is not available. That's why it is deallocated, and it is going to give you the compilation error. So local variable we use for a temporary usage. Locally I want to create some variable, store it, and after that I don't want to use it. So I use the local variable. Like you use counters for your loop. Loop control variables local. After loop I don't want it. If you want to use it, you have to declare it outside. Right? So that's all about the local variable. You have to keep these two things in mind. No default value. And second thing, no access modifier or any other modifier except final. Only final is allowed. So that's all for today.
So let us see the demonstration of the local variables with the help of this program. So you can see that I have created a class local variable demo, and here in the main function, obviously there is one local variable of string array is already defined here. So this is something that is already defined in the signature of the main function, so we are not considering it, but this is also a local variable. What we have declared here is int x is equal to 10. So this is my first local variable that I am declaring inside this main function, and I am currently initializing it. So I have told you that local variable must be initialized before using it. So I am initializing it, it means I can use it. Right? So we'll be using it, there will be no problem. Similarly, I am creating another local variable inside this loop, that is int I. So int I is the second local variable, but it is declared inside the loop. So its availability, its scope will be within this loop only. You cannot access this int I outside this loop. The reason being local variables are declared inside any block, so they are accessible only inside the block. So I am trying to print this value I inside this block, so this is accessible here. This will print the value of I. Similarly, if I will try to print x here, if I will try to print the value of x here, so it will be available here. Why? Because x is declared inside the main function. So inside the main function we can access x anywhere. So I am accessing this x here inside this main function. Main function is closing here. So before closing of the main function I can access this x anywhere. So I am trying to access here. So there is no problem. X is accessible. X can be accessed inside the loop also. There is no problem. But I cannot be accessed outside the loop. Right? So here I am printing the value of I and x. So if you save this program and you try to compile this, I tried to compile this, it is compiled successfully, and if I run this, so it will be executing. First of all, the values of I are printed 0 to 5, means 0 to 4, and then the value of x has been printed, which is 10. So there is no problem, all the values are accessed here. Now coming to the concepts that I have discussed regarding the local variables. The first thing I told you, local variable do not get default value. So now I do not initialize x here. If you do not initialize x here, so it is not a crime, it is not a problem. The problem is when you are trying to access it. So I am not initializing X, so I am not having any right to access it, not even to print its value. Forget about doing some update, I am not authorized even to print it. So this statement will give me an error. You can see this, I am compiling it. If I will compile this, so it is giving me the error, local variable X might not have been initialized, and it is saying that this statement system.out.println X is having some error. So now coming back to this, it means we need to initialize it. Yes, if you do not access it, if you do not try to access it, then there is no problem. But if you are not using it, then there is no use of declaring any local variable, right? But yes, if it is declared and not initialized, so this is not a problem. The problem is when you are trying to access it. Second concept I told you, that you cannot use any access modifier along with the local variables. So if I try to use some access modifier, let's say I am putting a public keyword here, so it will give me a compilation error. If I try to compile this, it is saying illegal start of expression, and it is pointing out to your public keyword. You can see that the compiler is showing you a proper indication that where the problem is. Illegal start of expression, public is not allowed here. Not only public, you cannot use any access modifier. Even if you try to write here private, so private is also not allowed. The reason is quite clear. Access modifiers are simply allowing you to decide the accessibility level, but local variables are not accessible outside the block, so you cannot declare it public, private, protected. Anything is not allowed here. So this is your second concept. Then the third concept I told you, that local variables are accessible only inside the block. It cannot be accessed outside the scope where it has been declared. So for example, here int I is declared inside the loop, so I can be accessed only inside this loop. Till now we were accessing here inside the loop, but if I will try to access this I here outside the loop, so it will say sorry, I cannot find I. So you will get an error, variable I cannot find symbol I, right? The reason is clear. I told you variable will be created when you encounter this statement which is declaring it, and it will be deallocated as soon as the enclosing block completes. So here the enclosing block completes, so beyond this point you will not be having any variable available here. This variable I is not available here, so you will be getting the error cannot find symbol. You can see cannot find symbol, and it is pointing to I, symbol variable I in class local variable demo, right? So this is how we can understand the concept of local variable.
So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you find this video useful, so please like, subscribe and share with all of your friends so that they can also get benefited. Ravi Sahu signing off. Thank you.